There are moments in life when the weight of the world feels too heavy to bear. We walk through valleys of uncertainty, pain, and loneliness, wondering if anyone sees, if anyone cares. But let me remind you today, no matter where you are, no matter what you are facing, God is always with you. From the beginning of time, God's promise has never changed. When he spoke to Moses, he said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. When he called Joshua to lead his people, he said, be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. And when Jesus walked this earth, he reminded his followers, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Here's an expanded version of Key Point 1 in the style of Billy Graham. From the beginning of time, God has assured his people that he will never leave them. His promises are not temporary, nor are they subject to change based on the circumstances of our lives. They are eternal, unwavering, and steadfast. In Deuteronomy 31:6, God says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. What a comfort it is to know that the God who created the heavens and the earth, the one who set the stars in the sky and formed the foundations of the world, is with us today, just as he was with his people thousands of years ago. Yet so often we find ourselves doubting this promise. We look at the trials we are facing, the hardships, the loneliness, the pain, and we ask, God, are you really with me? We mistake silence for absence. We think that because we cannot feel him, he must have left us. But my friends, let me tell you something today. God's presence is not dependent on your emotions. It is not based on how you feel or what you see. It is based on his unchanging word. Jesus himself told his disciples in Matthew 28:20, and surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. That means that no matter where you go, no matter what you face, no matter how dark the road ahead may seem, God is right there with you. He is walking beside you, guiding you, strengthening you, and holding you up when you feel like you cannot take another step. Think of the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the book of Daniel. They refused to bow to the king's idol, and as a result they were thrown into a fiery furnace. But when the king looked inside, he did not see just 3 men, he saw 4. Because God was with them in the fire, the flames did not consume them, the heat did not destroy them. And in the same way, God is with you in the fires of life. The trials you face may be painful, but they will not destroy you. The struggles may seem overwhelming, but they will not overtake you. There are times when we walk through seasons of suffering and we do not understand why. We cry out to God, asking him to take away the pain, to remove the struggle, to make things easier, and sometimes he does. But sometimes he allows us to walk through the fire, not to harm us, but to refine us, to strengthen us, to build in us a faith that is unshakable, a trust that cannot be broken, because it is in the fire that we come to see that God truly is with us. Maybe today you are feeling weary. Maybe you are feeling abandoned. Maybe you are wondering if God has forgotten you. Let me remind you, he has not. He sees you. He knows your pain. He hears your cries, and he is closer than you realize. All throughout Scripture, God promises that he is with his people. From Genesis to Revelation, we see a God who walks with his children, a God who never abandons, a God who never turns away. So today, hold on to that promise. Stand firm in the truth that God is with you. Do not rely on feelings, rely on faith. Do not listen to the lies of the enemy. Listen to the voice of God. And when the storms come, when the fire rages, when the trials seem too great, remember, you are not alone. The God of the universe walks beside you. And he will never, ever leave you. There is something powerful about knowing that God is not only with you, but that he also goes before you. He is not simply watching from a distance, observing your struggles and waiting to step in. No, he is already ahead of you, preparing the way, making the crooked path straight, and ensuring that his plan for your life is fulfilled. How often do we find ourselves consumed by worry, unsure of what the future holds? We lie awake at night, our minds racing, wondering how we will get through the next day, the next week, or the next season of life. We fear the unknown. We dread what may come. We question whether we will have the strength to endure. But God says, do not be afraid, for I am with you. I go before you. In Isaiah 45:2, God declares, I will go before you and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of bronze and cut the bars of iron. That means that before you even step into the battles of life, God has already made a way. Before you face the trial, he has already provided the strength you need to endure. Before you reach the closed door, he has already prepared the right one to open. Think about Moses and the Israelites. When they fled Egypt and found themselves standing before the Red Sea, they were trapped. Behind them, Pharaoh's army was closing in, and before them, the water stretched out with no escape in sight. But what did God do? He parted the sea. He made a way where there was no way. And my friends, he is still the same God today. When you stand before an impossible situation, when you see no way out, when you feel surrounded, remember, God goes before you. He is already making a way. You may not see it yet. You may not understand how, but faith is not about seeing. It is about trusting. It is about believing that even when you cannot see the road ahead, God is leading the way. He is moving in ways you cannot comprehend. He is working behind the scenes, aligning people, opportunities, and circumstances to bring about his perfect plan for your life. Some of you are facing uncertainty right now. Maybe it is in your job. Maybe it is in your health. Maybe it is in your family. You do not know what to do. You do not know which direction to take. But I want to encourage you today. God knows. He sees what you cannot see. He knows what is ahead. And he is already preparing the path. Do not waste your energy worrying about what is beyond your control. Do not allow fear to consume you. Instead, surrender to the one who holds your future in his hands. In Proverbs 3:05-6, we are told, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. That is the key. Trust. Trust that he knows what he is doing. Trust that he will not let you fall. Trust that he will lead you to where you need to be. When you feel lost, remember that he is your guide. When you feel weak, remember that he is your strength. When you feel uncertain, remember that he is your certainty. God has already gone before you. He is in your tomorrow, and he will never fail you. There are moments in life when we feel as though we are walking through a storm, tossed by the waves, unsure of where we are headed. The road ahead is unclear, and the voices of doubt whisper, telling us we are alone. But I want to remind you today, you are never alone. God is always with you, even when you cannot feel him, even when your prayers seem unanswered, even when the silence feels unbearable. He is there. Throughout the Bible, God reassures his people over and over again, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Deuteronomy 31:6. That promise is not just for those who lived in ancient times. It is for you today. No matter what you are going through, no matter how deep the valley, no matter how fierce the battle, God is with you. Look at the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These three men refused to bow to the golden image of King Nebuchadnezzar, and as a result, they were thrown into a fiery furnace, but the fire did not consume them. The king looked into the flames and saw not three men, but four. That fourth person was the presence of God, walking with them, protecting them, shielding them from harm. And my friend, he walks with you today. Maybe your fire is a financial struggle. Maybe it is a broken relationship. Maybe it is a battle with anxiety or depression. You may feel like you are surrounded by flames, but listen, you are not alone in the fire. The same God who stood with those three men in Babylon is standing with you right now. Sometimes we think that if God were truly with us, we would never face trouble. But Jesus never promised that life would be easy. In fact, he said in John 16:33, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. The storms will come, the winds will blow, the fire will rage, but God is your refuge. He is your strength, and he will never abandon you. Think about the disciples in the storm. One night they were caught in a violent windstorm on the Sea of Galilee. They were terrified, thinking they were going to drown. But then they saw Jesus walking on the water. And he said to them, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. Matthew 14:27. Maybe today you are in the middle of a storm. Maybe you feel like you are sinking. But do you know what Peter did? He stepped out of the boat. He fixed his eyes on Jesus and walked on the water. And as long as he kept his focus on Christ, he did not sink. But the moment he looked at the waves, he began to go under. That is the lesson for us. When we focus on the storm, we will be overwhelmed. When we look at the fire, we will feel its heat. But when we fix our eyes on Jesus, we will walk through it in victory. My friend, God is with you right now. He is with you in the valley. He is with you in the storm. He is with you in the fire. You do not have to be afraid. You do not have to carry the weight alone. All you have to do is trust in Him. And so I ask you today, will you trust Him? Will you believe that He is beside you? Will you surrender your fear, your doubt, your worry, and let Him carry you? Because He will. He always will. God is always with you, and He will never fail you. There are moments in life when we feel like we are walking through darkness, moments when it seems like no one understands, no one sees, no one cares. But I want you to know today that God sees you. He knows what you are facing. He knows the burdens you are carrying, the fears that weigh on your heart, the struggles that keep you awake at night, and He is with you. One of the greatest promises in Scripture is that God never leaves His children. He does not abandon us when times are hard. He does not forget us when the road is rough. In Isaiah 41:10, the Lord declares, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Think about that for a moment. The Creator of the universe, the one who spoke the stars into existence, the one who holds the oceans in the palm of His hand, has promised to uphold you. He is not a distant God. He is not unaware of your pain. He is right there, walking beside you, holding you up when you feel like you cannot go on. Maybe today you are facing a situation that seems impossible. Maybe you have been praying for a breakthrough, for an answer, and it feels like God is silent. But listen to me. Just because you cannot see Him working does not mean He is not working. Just because you do not feel His presence does not mean He is not there. Faith is not about what we see, it is about who we trust. Look at the story of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison. For years he suffered injustice. But even in the prison cell, even in the pit of despair, God was with him. And in His perfect time, God raised Joseph up to a position of honor, using him to save an entire nation. Some of you are in a season where it feels like you are in the pit. You feel forgotten. You feel abandoned. But I want to tell you today that God has not forgotten you. He is using this season to shape you, to prepare you, to refine your faith, because He has something greater ahead. Think about Moses standing before the Red Sea, an entire army chasing after him. It looked like the end. But what did God do? He made a way where there was no way. He split the sea so His people could walk through on dry ground. And He will make a way for you, too. The enemy wants you to believe that you are alone. He wants you to believe that your situation is hopeless. But that is a lie. God is for you, not against you. And if God is for you, who can stand against you? Romans 8:31. So do not be afraid. Do not let worry steal your peace. Do not let fear rob you of your joy. God is with you, and He will see you through, even when you do not understand, even when the road is uncertain, even when the answers do not come the way you expected. He is working. Trust in Him. Hold on to His promises, because He will never fail you. There are times in life when we feel like we are standing in the middle of a storm, waves crashing around us, the wind howling and the darkness closing in. We cry out to God, asking Him to calm the storm, to take away the struggle, to make things easier. But sometimes instead of stopping the storm, God chooses to walk with us through it. Sometimes instead of taking away the burden, He gives us the strength to carry it. And in those moments we must remember, God is always with us. When the disciples were in the boat, caught in the middle of a violent storm, they were afraid. They thought they were going to perish. But then, in the distance, they saw Jesus walking on the water. And Peter, full of faith, said, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And Jesus said, "Come." Peter stepped out of the boat, and for a moment he walked on water. But then the wind grew stronger, the waves rose higher, and Peter began to sink. He cried out, "Lord, save me!" And immediately, Jesus reached out His hand and caught him. Matthew 14:32. through 33. That is the God we serve, a God who reaches out His hand, a God who does not let us sink, a God who does not let us drown in our fears, our worries, or our circumstances. But we must keep our eyes on Him. The moment Peter took his eyes off Jesus and focused on the storm, he started to sink. And the same is true for us. When we focus on our problems, our pain, and our fears, we start to lose hope. But when we fix our eyes on Jesus, we find strength in the storm, peace in the struggle, and hope in the darkest night. Maybe today you feel like you are sinking. Maybe you are struggling with something no one else knows about. Maybe you feel overwhelmed by the weight of life. But let me tell you something. God has not forgotten you. He is right there with you even now. You may not feel it. You may not see it. But He is walking with you through the storm. In Isaiah 43:2, God says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flames scorch you. Notice that God does not say, if you go through deep waters, or if you walk through fire. No, He says when. We will face trials. We will walk through difficult seasons. But the promise is this: we will not walk through them alone. Think about the three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who were thrown into the fiery furnace because they refused to bow to an idol. The fire was so hot that it killed the soldiers who threw them in. But when King Nebuchadnezzar looked into the fire, he saw not three men, but four. God was in the fire with them. And when they came out, not a single hair on their heads was burned, and they did not even smell like smoke. Daniel 3:16-27. That is the God we serve, a God who steps into the fire with us, a God who stands in the storm with us, a God who does not always take away the trial, but walks with us through it and brings us out victorious. So do not be discouraged. Do not give in to fear. Do not let the storm shake your faith, because the one who calms the storm, the one who walks on water, the one who stands in the fire, He is with you. He will not fail you. He will not let you go. And when the storm has passed, when the fire has burned out, you will look back and see that it was in those moments that God was carrying you. He was making you stronger. He was drawing you closer. And He was proving once again that He is always with you. There are moments in life when we feel abandoned, forgotten, or overwhelmed by the trials we face. The weight of the world seems to press down on us, and we begin to wonder, where is God in all of this? But let me remind you today, God is always with you. No matter what you are facing, no matter how dark the road may seem, He has never left you, and He never will. One of the greatest lies the enemy tells us is that we are alone. He wants us to believe that no one sees our pain, that no one understands our struggles, and that even God has turned His back on us. But that is not the truth. The truth is found in Deuteronomy 31:8, where it says, the Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. When we walk through the valleys of life, God walks with us. When we are surrounded by enemies, He stands as our defender. When we feel weak, He is our strength. When we are broken, He is our healer. When we cry out in the night, He hears every tear that falls. David understood this when he wrote in Psalm 23:04, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Notice that David did not say, if I walk through the valley, but even though I walk through it. In this life there will be valleys, there will be storms, there will be battles. But God's promise is not that we will avoid them. It is that we will not walk through them alone. Look at the story of Joseph. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and thrown into prison. But through it all, the Bible tells us something powerful. But the Lord was with Joseph. In his darkest moments, in his deepest suffering, God was with him. And in the end, Joseph was raised up, placed in a position of great power, and used by God to save many lives. You see, the trials you face today are not the end of your story. God is working even when you cannot see it. He is leading you, preparing you, and shaping you for something greater. Do not lose heart. Do not give up. Because the very thing the enemy meant to destroy you, God will use for your good. There is nothing you can go through that God has not already seen. He knows your pain, He knows your struggles, and He is walking with you every step of the way. When you cannot see a way forward, trust that He is making a way. When you feel like you are drowning, know that He is reaching out His hand. When you feel weak, lean on Him, for His strength is made perfect in your weakness. Isaiah 41:10 says, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. That is a promise you can hold on to. That is a truth you can stand on. God is with you through every trial, through every storm, through every challenge. He will never let you go. And one day you will look back and see that He was there all along, leading you, protecting you, and loving you with an everlasting love.